Welcome to this training on public benefits and how they work as a bridge for people with disabilities. The world of benefits can be confusing and concerning for people with disabilities who are considering work. Given that, the more you can build your knowledge about benefits, the more prepared you'll be to support people pursuing work. In the video titled Public Benefits, a Bridge for People with Disabilities, you learn that public benefits provide an important safety net, but you also learn that it's difficult to financially get by when benefits are the only source of income. As a result, work can be a powerful solution to address that problem. By watching the animated Benefits and Work video series on DB 101, you also learned that public benefits have special rules called work incentives that support working. These rules make it possible for people with disabilities to work and financially get ahead. During this 3-part training, we'll go a little deeper into these concepts. In this first part, we'll provide you more details about eligibility and the application process for most common public benefits. In the second part, we'll empower you with information about the basic work incentives in each of these benefit programs. With that information, you can begin to address myths about benefits and work. We'll also provide you with the steps for reporting earnings to each benefit program. In the third part, we'll show you specific ways you can use DB 101 to tackle this important issue. As you learned in the video titled Public Benefits, a Bridge for People with Disabilities, there are a number of public benefits that a person with a disability may receive. Some of those benefits provide the person a monthly payment to help them cover food, rent, and other basic living expenses. Other benefit programs provide health care coverage, in most cases coverage that a person can't get through any other means. Now, to help people bridge together benefits and work, you first need to understand the eligibility rules for each benefit. During this video, we'll provide you with those details for Social Security disability insurance, supplemental security income, Minnesota Supplemental Aid, general assistance, housing support, formerly called group residential housing, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, the Minnesota's Family Investment Program, medical assistance, and Medicare. Let's begin by looking at the details for Social Security disability insurance, which is often called SSDI for short. As you already learned, SSDI is a monthly cash benefit that's administered by Social Security. It's part of a larger set of benefits known as Retirement, Survivor, and Disability Insurance Benefits, or RSDI for short. So, SSDI is the D, or the disability insurance, within the RSDI program. There are 2 basic eligibility criteria that must be met to get SSDI. First, the person must meet Social Security's definition of disability. And second, the person must have reached insured status. Let's look at the details for each of these criteria. As you learned in the animated video titled, What is SSDI? To meet the definition of disability, the person must have a physical or mental condition that's severe, long-term, and limits their ability to work. The term severe means the person's physical or mental conditions affect their ability to do basic work-related activities. Social Security has a tool called the Listing of Impairments, which provides a list of many medical conditions and details for what's considered severe with each. You can find a link to this tool in the SSDI article on DB 101. In addition to being severe, the physical or mental conditions must be long-term. Long-term means the conditions must be expected to last 12 months or longer, or result in death. And lastly, to meet the definition of disability, the person's physical or mental conditions must limit their ability to work. To decide if a person's conditions limit their ability to work, Social Security looks at the value of the person's work activity and compares it to a guideline called Substantial Gainful Activity, or SGA for short. To determine the value of a person's work, Social Security takes their gross wages for the month and subtracts the value of extra help they get on the job, lower productivity because of their disability, and any medical expenses they paid for which made it possible to work. The amount remaining after those deductions is called countable earnings. Social Security will compare the countable earnings to the SGA level. If the countable earnings are below SGA, the person would meet this part of the definition. If the countable earnings are above SGA, Social Security would likely decide the person doesn't meet the definition of disability. In 2020, the SGA level for a person with a disability is $1,260 per month. If a person has blindness, the SGA level is $2,110 per month. You can read more about the SGA decision in the SSDI article on DB 101. The second SSDI eligibility criteria is that the person must have reached insured status. To do that, a person must have worked and paid enough into the Social Security Trust Fund. You see, when we work, our employer is required by law to put 7.65% of our gross earnings into the Social Security and Medicare trust funds. They're also responsible for putting in an additional 7.65% on our behalf. When you're self-employed, you have to put the whole 15.3% in yourself. Now, as we pay into the trust fund, we can begin to accrue work credits. This year, 2020, we get one work credit for every $1,410 we earn. The most work credits a person can get in 1 year is 4. To reach insured status for SSDI, a person must have the required number of work credits for their age. Additionally, a certain amount of that work must have been done in the years just before their disability began. In some situations, a person may be able to get a disability insurance benefit that's based on their parent's work record. That benefit is called Social Security Disabled Adult Child, or DAC for short. This benefit also goes by the name Childhood Disability Benefit. To be eligible for this benefit, a person must meet the definition of disability that was just explained, plus a few other criteria. The person must be over the age of 18, their parent must have reached insured status and must have passed away, retired, or were disabled. And lastly, the person's disability must have started before the age of 22. You can read more about insured status and the DAC benefit in the SSDI article on DB 101. So, if a person is found eligible for SSDI, how much will the benefit be? Remember from the animated video titled, "What is SSDI?" there isn't one single benefit amount that everyone gets. Instead, the monthly amount is based on the amount of taxable Social Security earnings the person has. If they're applying for DAC, the benefit amount would be based in part on the amount of their parents' work record. A person can see if they've reached insured status, and if so, they can also see their benefit amount by setting up and logging into their My Social Security account. The person can also call Social Security's toll-free number, 1-800-772-1213, and ask if they've reached insured status and what their benefit amount will be. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for SSDI, let them know there are 3 ways they can start the application process. They can go online to www.ssa.gov, or they can call the Social Security toll-free number at 1-800-772-1213. If neither of those options work for the person, they can also go into a local Social Security office and ask to start the application process. The Minnesota Department of Human Services contracts with agencies to assist people in applying for SSI and SSDI. Agencies contracted to provide Social Security benefit advocacy services help people who are already using state benefit programs like general assistance or housing support. These agencies provide light to intensive services at all stages of the application process. Agencies contracted to provide SOAR services help people who are currently homeless or at risk of homelessness. SOAR agencies provide intensive advocacy services, including outreach and case management, with a focus on the initial level of the application process. If you know someone who could use Social Security Benefit Advocacy or SOAR advocacy services, contact the Disability Hub MN at 1-866-333-2466 to get referral options. Once an application for SSDI is initiated, several things will happen. First, Social Security must decide if the person has enough work credits to reach insured status on their own record. That can be easily checked in the Social Security's computer systems because Social Security regularly tracks the number of credits people have. Social Security will also check to see if the person could draw a benefit off a parent's work record, and if that parent has accrued enough credits. If a person has reached insured status or they can draw off a parent's work record, the person must complete a couple Social Security forms, including the Adult Disability Report and a Work Activity Report. Once the forms are completed, the person will need to send the forms and any medical documentation to Social Security. It's very important that a person submits documentation of their medical condition and, if possible, documentation of the severity of their condition. It's also worth noting that many of the application forms can be completed online. Now, when Social Security receives the completed forms, they'll send them and any medical information to the Disability Determination Service, which is called DDS for short. The DDS is part of the Minnesota Department of Employment and Economic Development, or DEED for short. Social Security contracts with DEED's DDS to make the medical disability determinations for all their applications. The DDS also does Social Security's medical continuing disability reviews. A DDS claims analyst will review the information provided by the person and decide if the person meets Social Security's definition of disability. They'll then give their decision to Social Security, and Social Security will send the person an award or denial letter. If the decision is a denial, the person can appeal if they feel it's wrong. You can find more information and tips about applying for SSDI on the SSDI article on DB 101. Check out the page titled Apply for Benefits. The next benefit we'll cover is called Supplemental Security Income, or SSI for short. As you learned in the video called Public Benefits, a Bridge for People with Disabilities, SSI is a monthly cash benefit for certain groups of people with low income and low assets. This benefit is also administered by Social Security. So, who can get SSI? Well, to get SSI, a person must fall into one of two groups and have little to no income and assets. The two groups that can potentially get SSI are people who are 65 years of age or older and people of any age who meet Social Security's definition of disability. Since this training is focused on assisting people with disabilities, we'll be covering the disability-specific SSI rules, not the age 65 and older rules. Now, to get SSI based on disability, the person must meet Social Security's definition of disability, which is the same definition we explained just a few minutes ago. There's one exception to the use of this definition. If a person is applying for SSI and they're under 18, Social Security will use a slightly different definition of disability. Instead of checking to see whether work activity is at the substantial gainful activity level, they look at the child's functional limitations. Now, if a person meets Social Security's definition of disability, it doesn't mean they'll get SSI. The person must also have low assets and low income. More specifically, a single person's countable assets must be below $2,000 and their countable income must be below $783 per month, which is the 2020 rate. We'll cover the details of countable income on the next slide. If a person is married, their combined countable assets must be below $3,000 and their combined countable income must be below $1,175 per month, which is also the 2020 rate. You can learn more about the SSI eligibility criteria in the SSI article on DB 101. The maximum SSI a single person can receive is $783 per month, or $1,175 per month for an eligible couple. This is called the federal benefit rate. But the specific amount a person receives is based on the amount of other income they have, as well as any free food or shelter they get. You see, SSI is a financial need-based benefit. That means if a person has other income or help paying for food and shelter, Social Security will lower the amount of SSI the person gets. Now, when Social Security looks at the person's income, they do allow some deductions. For example, they don't count the first $20 of unearned income. They don't count the first $65 of earnings, and then they don't count half of the remaining earnings. After all the deductions are applied, the remaining income, which is called countable income, is subtracted from the maximum SSI amount to get the person's specific SSI amount. Now, there's a great little calculator in DB 101 called your SSI benefit calculation. You can use this calculator to see how different amounts of income affect the SSI benefit. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for SSI, let them know they can initiate the application process by calling the Social Security toll-free number at 1-800-772-1213 or by going to the local Social Security office. The person can also start the application process online by completing the online version of the Adult Disability Report. But let them know they'll need to have an interview with someone at Social Security about their income, assets, and living situation as part of the application process. Now, once Social Security has all the application forms, as well as the person's income, assets, and living situation information, they'll determine if the person meets the income and asset limits. If they do, then Social Security will move forward the application to the DDS. The DDS will follow the same process as they do with someone applying for SSDI. And remember, as you learned with SSDI, Minnesota's Department of Human Services has contracted with agencies to assist people with the application process. If you know someone who may be interested in Social Security benefit advocacy or source services, contact the Disability Hub MN at 1-866-333-2466 to get referral options. You can find more information about SSI's eligibility criteria and the application process in the SSI article on DB 101. The next cash benefit we'll cover is called Minnesota Supplemental Aid, or MSA for short. As you learned in the video, Public Benefits, a bridge for people with disabilities, MSA is administered by county human service agencies, and it's intended to be a supplement to the SSI benefit. So who can get MSA? Well, as you can imagine, a person must meet certain criteria to get this benefit. First, the person must live in Minnesota. Second, the person must be 18 years of age or older. Third, the person must have assets below $10,000. Fourth, in 2020, the person must have gross income below $2,349 per month or below $4,698 per month if they're an eligible couple. And the fifth and final criteria is that the person must either get some SSI or they would be eligible for SSI except their countable income is just above the SSI limit. If the person falls into the latter group, in which their income is just above the SSI limit, the person must have countable income below the MSA standard. The MSA standard for an individual living alone in 2020 is $844 a month. You can find a list of the MSA standards for the different living arrangements in the MSA article on DB 101. Now that you know who can get MSA, let's look at how much a person could get. For a single person living alone, receiving at least $1 of SSI, the MSA benefit amount, also known as the MSA grant, would be $81 per month. Now, for someone who does not receive SSI, their MSA grant would be the amount remaining after subtracting their countable income from the MSA standard. To determine countable income, the county will deduct a $20 general income exclusion from unearned income, a $65 earned income exclusion, and 1/2 of the remaining earnings. In the MSA article on DB 101, you'll find two very helpful calculators known as triads. One is for someone who's receiving at least $1 of SSI. The other is for someone who doesn't receive SSI. You can play around with these triads to see how income affects the MSA benefit. It's important to note that there are different MSA benefit amounts for people living with others and people living in a facility. There are also different MSA benefit amounts for eligible couples. You can see a list of the different benefit amounts in the MSA article on DB 101. Now there's one more factor to the MSA grant calculation: special needs. If the person has certain special needs, either the actual amount of that special need or a designated amount can be added to their MSA benefit. For example, if a person is paying for representative payee services, their MSA grant amount can be increased to help offset that cost. The amount allowed for this special need is either $25 per month or 10% of the person's gross income, whichever is less. Another example is the amount allowed for high housing costs. If a person has housing costs that exceed 40% of their gross income, is under 65, and has applied for subsidized housing assistance, then they may be eligible for an extra $194 per month in MSA housing assistance. To get approved for this special need, the person must be transitioning out of an institution, like a hospital or nursing home, be eligible for medical assistance, funded personal care attendant services, or be on a home and community-based waiver. You can read more about the MSA benefit amount, including special needs, in the MSA article on DB 101. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for MSA, let them know they can apply online at applymn.org or complete the combined application form and turn it into their county human services agency. Data tells us that there are many people who could be eligible for MSA but don't have it. There are approximately 90,000 people in Minnesota over the age of 18 and receiving SSI, but there are only about 30,000 people receiving MSA. So be sure to keep your eyes out for people who could be eligible. Now, if a person is already receiving benefits through the county, they may not need to complete another application. In that situation, they should contact their county financial worker or team and ask what steps they need to take. The financial worker or team will review the person's application or their current benefit information, if they're already receiving benefits through the county. After they've finished reviewing this information, they'll send a decision letter to the person about their award or denial of MSA benefits. The person should receive the notice within 60 days. If they are found eligible, they will receive the MSA benefit through an electronic benefit transfer or EBT card. You can learn more about MSA and the application process on DB 101. The next benefit we'll cover is called General Assistance, or GA for short. This benefit is also administered by county human service agencies. General Assistance serves as a critical safety net for adults who are single and couples without children who are unable to provide for themselves. So who can get GA? Well, the specific eligibility criteria can be pretty detailed, but the core concepts of eligibility are actually straightforward. In general, to get GA, a single person must have countable income below $203 per month. As a married couple, countable income must be below $260, and for a minor child without a parent, countable income must be below $250. There's also an asset limit. Assets must be at or below $10,000. And finally, the individual or couple must not have children living with them and must be unable to work and support themselves. Now, there are actually 14 different bases of eligibility for GA. To be eligible, a person or couple must fall into one of those bases. The two most common are people who have a permanent or temporary illness or injury, and people who are in the application process for SSDI or SSI. So, if a person is found eligible for GA, how much is the benefit? The maximum amount of a GA benefit a person can receive is actually the same amount as the income limit. A single person can get up to $203 per month, a married couple can get up to $260 per month, and a minor not living with a parent can get up to $250 per month. The actual amount a person gets is the amount remaining after subtracting the person's countable income from the GA income limit. Countable income is all of the person's unearned income, plus a portion of their earned income. The county deducts the first $65 of earnings and then deducts half of the remaining earnings. Let's say a person is currently getting $203 a month of GA. Then they get a part-time job making $350 per month. The GA won't be reduced by the $350 in wages. Instead, the first $65 of the wages are excluded, then half the remaining wages are excluded. $350 minus 65 and divided by 2 equals $142.50 of countable income. So the person's GA benefit would be reduced from $203 a month to $60.50. But they also have $350 in wages. So their total income would be $410.50 per month, rather than just the $203 of GA. Given the maximum benefit amounts are relatively low, you can see how GA is only for people who have little to no income. It's also important to recognize that the benefit isn't intended to be a long-term income replacement. Instead, the idea behind GA is to provide some temporary support while the person is working on a long-term solution to their financial situation. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for GA, let them know they can apply online at applymn.org or complete the combined application form and turn it in to their County Human Services Agency. During the application process, the person will be required to apply for any other benefit they may be eligible to receive, such as disability benefits and retirement benefits. The financial worker will review the person's application and send a decision letter within 30 days. If the person is in a dire situation, they may also request emergency GA to help them while they're waiting for the decision on their application. People can only get emergency GA or EGA once within 12 months. There has to be an emergency that will cause them to lose a basic need like housing or that threatens their health or safety. The county only has a limited amount of EGA funds, so when the funds are gone, the person can't get EGA. And they have to have lived in Minnesota for at least 30 days. If they are found eligible, they will get the GA benefit through an EBT card. You can learn more about GA in the application process in the GA article on DB 101. The next benefit we'll cover is called housing support, but it used to be called group residential housing, or GRH for short. This is a cash benefit that helps pay an eligible person's room and board. But this is very different from the other cash benefits you've learned about, because the cash with housing support is not paid to the person. Instead, the County Human Service Agency, which is responsible for administering this program, pays the cash directly to the housing provider. So, who can get housing support? Well, a person may be eligible for housing support if they meet 4 basic criteria. First, they must be either age 65 or older, or they must have a disabling condition. Second, they must fall under one of 2 bases of eligibility, which include the GA basis and the SSI basis. To fall under the GA basis of eligibility, the person must either get GA or would get GA if their assets and income were lower. To fall under the SSI basis of eligibility, the person must either get SSI or would get SSI if their assets and income were lower. The third criteria is that the person must have assets below $10,000. The The fourth criteria is that the person must have countable income below the housing support benefit amount. If the person is just getting help with room and board, then that limit is $922 per month. If the person is also getting services from the housing support provider, then the limit is higher, often $1,404.84 a month. If a person is found eligible for housing support, their housing provider can get up to $922 per month from the state on the person's behalf if the person has no income. The specific amount the housing provider will get from the state, though, depends on the person's income. If the person receives at least some SSI, they will need to pay the housing provider $679 per month in 2020 toward their room and board, and the county will pay the provider $243 in housing support, which adds up to $922. If the person does not get SSI, then the county will calculate the person's countable income and subtract a $104 personal needs allowance in 2020. The remainder is what the person will need to pay the housing provider. The state will pay the difference between that amount and the $922 as the housing support payment. Some housing support settings also provide support services. In those settings, the housing support provider gets up to $482.84 more to provide things like transportation, arranging meetings and appointments, or 24-hour supervision. Keep in mind that the person can't be getting personal care or waivered services through MA and get housing support services at the same time. You can find more information about housing support services on HB 101. Just go to mn.hb101.org. In the housing article in DB 101, there's a page dedicated to housing support. On that page, you'll find two great calculators called triads, which you can use to see how different amounts of income impact the housing support amount and the person's room and board responsibility. You can play around with these triads to build your understanding of the housing support benefit amount. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for housing support, let them know they can apply online at applymn.org or complete the combined application form and turn it into their county human services agency. When completing the application, the person should make a note that they are requesting housing support. To be eligible for housing support, there must be a housing provider with an available spot, and they have to agree to allow the person to live there. If the person knows of a specific housing provider they would like to use, they should also write down the name, address, and telephone number of the housing location. The financial worker will review the person's application and send a decision letter within 60 days. You can learn more about housing support on DB 101. In the housing article, you'll find a page dedicated to this benefit. There's also information about housing support on the HB 101 website. Just go to www.hb101.org. The next benefit we'll cover is the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP for short. This benefit used to be called food stamps or food assistance, but in the last few years, its name has changed to SNAP. This is a benefit that is designed specifically to help a person pay for food. Like many of the others you've learned about, SNAP is administered by the county human services agencies. To get SNAP, a household must have gross income below 130% of the federal poverty guideline. For a single person, that amount is $1,353 per month as of October 1st, 2019. The rates will increase slightly on October 1st of each year. Now, if there's a person in the household who has a disability or 62 years of age or older, this first income requirement is waived. The second criteria for getting SNAP is that net income must be below 100% of the federal poverty guideline. For a single person, that amount is $1,041 per month as of October 1st, 2019. The second criteria can also be waived, but only when everyone in the household gets GA, SSI, or MSA. In the SNAP article in DB 101, you can read about the income deductions that are used to calculate net income. The amount of SNAP a household can receive is based on two key factors: the household size and the household net income. For every household size, there's a maximum SNAP amount. For example, this year, the maximum SNAP amount for a household size of 1 is $194 per month. Now, the specific amount of SNAP a household receives is determined by taking the maximum SNAP amount and subtracting 30% of the household's net income. You can read more about the benefit amount in the SNAP article on DB 101. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for SNAP, let them know they can apply online at applyamend.org or complete the combined application form and turn it into their County Human Services agency. After they submit the application, someone from the county will contact them and set up an interview, which is required as part of the application process. The person can have the interview over the phone at the local county office or at another location that's convenient for the person. After the interview, the county financial worker will review the person's application and send a decision letter within 30 days. And just as with GA and MSA, if the person is found eligible, they will receive the benefit through an EBT card that they can use to buy food. If the person is in a dire situation, such as income below $150, they can request expedited SNAP benefits. You can learn more about SNAP and the application process in the SNAP article on DB 101. The final cash benefit that we'll cover is called the Minnesota Family Investment Program, or MFIP for short. This is a cash benefit for families who have low income. And as with most of the benefits we've discussed, this one is administered by the County Human Services agencies. To get MFIP, several criteria must be met. First, the family must have children under 18 years of age, or under 19 if the child is in school full-time. Second, the family must have assets at or below $10,000. And lastly, the family must have countable income below the limit for their family size. For example, a family with 4 eligible people must have countable income below $1,324 per month. The amount of MFIP a family receives is based on two key factors: the family size and the family's countable income. For every family size, there's a maximum MFIP amount. For example, this year, a family size of 4 could get up to $1,204 per month in MFIP. Now, the specific amount of MFIP a household receives is determined by taking the maximum MFIP amount for the family size and subtracting the family's countable income. Countable income is all of the family's unearned income plus a portion of their earned income. The county deducts the first $65 of earnings and then deducts half of the remaining earnings. You can read more about the benefit amount in the MFIP article on DB 101. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for MFIP, let them know they can apply online at applyamend.org, or they can complete the combined application form and turn it into their County Human Services agency. After they submit the application, someone from the county will contact them and set up an interview. This is required as part of the application process. The person can have the interview over the phone, at the local county office, or at another location that's convenient for the person. After the interview, the county financial worker will review the family's application and send a decision letter within 30 days. If found eligible, this cash benefit is also provided through an EBT card. You can learn more about MFIP and the application process in the MFIP article on DB 101. Now, there are 2 critical public health insurance programs that you should be familiar with. The first is called Medical Assistance, or MA for short. The second is called Medicare, which we'll cover in a few minutes. MA is Minnesota's Medicaid program. MA provides comprehensive health care coverage for people with disabilities, low income, and low assets in some cases. MA is administered by the County Human Services agencies. There are several groups of people who may be able to get MA. Since this training is focused on people with disabilities, we'll address the disability-specific rules. So, in regard to people with disabilities, there are two main ways to get MA. The first is by having countable income below 100% of the federal poverty guideline and assets below $3,000. For a single person, 100% of the federal poverty guideline is $1,041 per month as of July 1st, 2019. Countable income is all of the person's unearned income plus a portion of their earned income. The county deducts the first $65 of earnings and then deducts half of the remaining earnings. On DB 101, in the Disability-Based MA article, there is a countable income calculator called a Try It that you can use to see whether a person's countable income is above or below the federal poverty guideline. Now, if countable income is above 100% of the federal poverty guideline, the person may be able to still get MA, but they would have to spend down their countable income to 81% of the FPG on medical expenses. A spend down is like a deductible. The person is responsible for paying the amount of countable income they have above 81% of the FPG before MA starts paying. So, for example, if a person has $1,100 of countable income, they would be over 100% of the federal poverty guideline, which is $1,041 per month as of July 1st, 2019. As a result, they would be responsible for paying each month the amount of the countable income they have above 81% of the FPG, which is $844. So, $1,100 of countable income minus $844 means a $256 per month spend down. To get MA this way, the person must also have assets below $3,000. There are a couple of other ways to get MA if a person with a disability is working, which we'll cover in the next part of this training. For many people with disabilities, MA is an absolutely critical benefit. Not only does it provide access to comprehensive healthcare coverage, like doctor visits, hospital stays, and prescription drugs, it also covers medical services that aren't covered by any other type of health insurance. In particular, MA covers personal care services and home and community-based waiver services that can help people with disabilities stay in their homes. The support provided by MA services are difficult, if not impossible, to get covered in an employer-sponsored or private health insurance plan. You can read more about MA and what it covers in the Disability-Based MA article on DB 101. If you're working with someone who you think may be eligible for MA, and they have a disability, or are at least 65, then you want to direct them to the County Human Service Agency to apply. The person will need to complete the Minnesota Healthcare Program's application for certain populations, which is a fillable form online. You can Google DHS form number 3876 to find it. They can print it out and bring or mail it to the county, or they can request it and fill it out at the county office. If a person is under 65 not getting SSI and doesn't have Medicare, then you'll want to let them know that they can apply for MA online using Insured at the county or by completing and faxing in the paper application to 651-431-7750. The person should receive a decision about the MA application within 60 days. You can learn more about MA and the application process in the Disability-Based MA article on DB 101. The final benefit we'll cover is the second of the two critical public health insurance programs, Medicare. Medicare is a comprehensive health insurance specifically for people who are at least 65 years of age or for some people with disabilities. Medicare is funded by payroll taxes and the monthly premiums that enrollees pay. Eligibility for Medicare is handled by the Social Security Administration. There are two main groups of people who can get Medicare. The first is people who have been eligible for SSDI or DAC for 24 months. The second group is people who are at least 65 years of age. There are a few other smaller groups of people who can get Medicare, but those are not commonly used. Now, Medicare provides 3 different categories of coverage. Part A of Medicare covers hospital-type services, such as inpatient hospitalization and some home health care. Part B of Medicare covers doctor visits and other outpatient-type services. And Part D of Medicare covers prescription drugs. It's important you understand that Medicare has a number of out-of-pocket expenses. Part A doesn't have a premium, but Part B's monthly premium is around $144.60 per month, and Part D's premium is usually around $35 per month. Additionally, all 3 parts of Medicare have deductibles and copays or coinsurance. It's similar to many employer-sponsored health plans in that respect. But for people who have low income and assets, there are financial assistance programs that can help pay these Medicare out-of-pocket expenses. The Medicare Savings Program pays the Part B premium, and the Extra Help Program, also known as Low Income Subsidy Program, pays most, if not all, of the Part D premium and keeps copays for prescriptions to a small amount. You can read more about Medicare-covered services and these financial assistance programs in the Medicare article on DB 101. The majority of people who are eligible for Medicare are automatically enrolled in Part A and Part B. Social Security is responsible for making eligibility determinations and enrollment in Parts A and B, so any issues regarding those topics should be directed to them. If a person has MA, they'll be automatically enrolled in Part D when they become eligible for Medicare. If a person doesn't have MA, they'll need to take steps to choose a Part D plan and enroll. If a person isn't eligible for help in paying the Part B premium, it will be deducted from their Social Security benefit. The same is true of their Part D premium, unless they pay the Part D prescription drug plan directly. If the person chooses not to take Part B or Part D, they may have to pay a higher monthly premium, which is a type of penalty if they choose to take it in the future. Plus, if a person has medical assistance, they are required to take Part B and D. Given that, it's important that a person think very carefully about choosing not to take Part B or Part D. Often people do this because they can't afford the premiums. A person in that situation may be eligible for financial assistance programs that pay the Medicare out-of-pocket expenses, though. So be sure to connect the person to the county to apply for that help. An eligible person generally receives information about Medicare 3 months prior to their eligibility date. This allows the person time to read up on their options related to Medicare. You can learn more about Medicare-covered services and the enrollment process in the Medicare article on DB 101. As you can see, there are a number of critical programs that help cover basic living expenses in healthcare. You are now empowered with the core details for each of these benefits. With that knowledge, you can identify people who aren't receiving a particular benefit but may be eligible. You can also share with that person the steps they need to take to apply. As you begin using this new knowledge, be sure to reach out to the Disability Hub MN for support. The Hub can support you and the individuals you serve in understanding the eligibility and application process for all the public benefits addressed in this presentation. You can reach the Hub by calling 1-866-333-2466.